Mes amis Tande Ak TV, moi aujourd'hui à nous porter pour nous un dossier qui chaud, qui lourd et qui peut faire un pile monde l'ouvrir géo qu'on a pour le faire prudent. Parce que ça nous parler la Tande Ak TV, moi c'est pas mais c'est pas une blague. C'est un docteur américain qui sorti devant le public là pour dire que si docteur arrive fort venir plus malade, il a payé plus ça jeune plus l'argent. C'est qu'on y a pile monde dans communauté pas nous, dans communauté haïtienne, comment ça comprendre 𝐁𝐋𝐀𝐙𝐘-𝐓𝐕 ak maladie li à côté il arrivé faire gros déclaration ça.
Bataille vle parler avec nous. Mais le problème qui se pose, c'est que maladie a ça j'aime dans tout sens. Dans premier là, m'a chercher remède tout côté. Pas connaît pour un monde sous gain chance pour c'est l'hôpital qui est ça bon. Mais en pile fois l'hôpital c'est lui même qui tout. En pile fois là où moun yo aller, c'est l'hôpital qui tout. C'est soit au fait pas connaît si au fait l'exprès ou soit pas connaît. Ça y a boyo plus tout yo que yo edo parce que même moi vinn un point là côté que ça a été kon bam dans l'hôpital yo tellement manger système de défense moi tenez bien moi vont point côté que ça a été kon bam l'hôpital yo tellement manger système de défense moi vinn vont point côté que même produit naturel pas qu'à faire son combat qui dure un pile maladie ça c'est pour maladie qui m'ta souhaité aucun monde gain. Ben merci en pile pour communauté ça que me gagne. Merci en pile à chaque grand dans nous qui camper avec dans tout sens. Quel que soit ces monde qui aprelem, quel que soit ces monde qui envoie message pour moi, quel que soit ces monde qui aide avec la prière, quel que soit ces monde qui cherche feuille qui fait toute activité pour moi, quel que soit ces monde qui aide financièrement, nous toutes aidem dans toute façon capable. Vraiment apprécier ça. M'pas qu'à monter sur internet là, j'aime te qu'on faire là encore. G'a pile raison qui fait m'pas qu'à faire. Code la longue, mais c'est pas ignorer ma ignorer. Pour tout monde qui te connaît système déjà, pour tout monde qui te connaît aidem déjà, merci en pile.
Eh bien, Tande Ak TV, moi, ça nous sort Tande Ak 𝐁𝐋𝐀𝐙𝐘-𝐓𝐕 là. Nous te partager pour nous sur plateforme déjà. Et qu'on y a un pile monde a valoriser ça le te dire parce que ça docteur arrivé dire aller choquer un pile monde. Qu'on y a Tande Ak TV, moi, avant nous entrer fond dans dossier ça, nous pral regarder qui est docteur ça. Est-ce que c'est un faux docteur? Bien, est-ce que ça l'a dit c'est menti? Nous pral regarder qui est monsieur. Eh bien, monsieur relé Scott Jensen, c'est un docteur dans les États-Unis, il a plusieurs années d'expérience dans médecine familiale. Il te servi comme sénateur dans state Minnesota, il était même candidat pour gouverner. Ça veut dire pour nous Tande Ak TV, c'est pas un simple personnage sur les réseaux sociaux, c'est pas un monde sans expérience, mais plutôt c'est un monde qui connaît le système santé a fonctionné. Il travaille en dedans pendant plusieurs années, il décide de parler, il décide de sortir dans silence. Nous pas connaître si c'est bon Dieu qui frappe qui monsieur, nous pas connaître ça qui passé. Et lui même arrivé déclarer qu'il était peut parler parce que le système n'a qu'à faire pression sur lui. Et en pile non nous t'es déjà connaît comment la vie docteur fait s'est passé en bas gouvernement américain. Et docteur Sali même docteur Jensen, il déclare que le système santé a bien encouragement financier qui fait toucher plus l'argent. Si patient paraît plus malade, ça veut dire plus diagnostic, plus test, plus médicaments égal à plus l'argent qui entrer dans le système. Et il y a un exemple très simple. Il fait connaître que si on voit un infirmier là un patient, infirmier lui-même il peut être là il faut connaître que il vient faire une visite pour capable aider. Mais en réalité, il fait connaître que il y a un rapport 7 pages sur lui. Ça veut dire que infirmier ça peut joindre un problème né, risque pour tomber pour faire voler dans le pays sans chapeau, trop poids, apnée dormi, maladie vasculaire. Mais patient lui-même, ni pas même connaît s'il était malade comme ça. Ça veut dire, un infirmier qui peut être là, il pour le placard, pour checker tension et puis il y a tant de faire cancer, ou il y a toute qualité maladie, ou il y a problème respiratoire. Pendant ce temps, ou pas même au courant des maladies, ça ou t'as respiré bien, toute bagaille était en forme là. Docteur a expliqué que chaque nouveau diagnostic, c'est plus l'argent parce que compagnie à science a touché plus, gouvernement paye plus, clinique là touché plus, patient lui-même, il vient tant qu'on a un dossier financier et un programme spécial pour ça. Côté vaccin, si on arrive à prendre pile vaccin, il touché plus l'argent et pour diabète là même si ou pas malade grave, il ka mettre ou comme diabétique. Côté ou pousser ou prendre plus médicaments parce que chaque bagage ça yo porter l'argent et docteur lui-même, il fait connaître que pendant corona, époque corona, te gen l'hôpital qui te touché jusqu'à $75,000 par patient. Si vous classez à un certain niveau, ça a fait quelques systèmes l'hôpital touché 10 à 20 millions de dollars. Et le docteur a déclaré que l'hôpital a un monde spécial. Expert codage, côté travail, c'est chercher des détails, météo comme maladie. Ça veut dire capable de simple fièvre naturelle et puis comme ça. ou pral mourir, sou pas traité ou pral mourir. Petite tâche qui apparaît sous peau et puis il faut qu'on ait que ou gen maladie pour poumon, yon petit changement dans sang. Yo gen tan viril nan gros maladie kounya, c'est nan vrai médicament yo pral tou yo ak yo. Si ou même prend médicament vrai pour capable traiter, et bien c'est avec médicament ça yo pral bon genre de maladie ça. Et ça pas veut dire que 𝐁𝐋𝐀𝐙𝐘-𝐓𝐕 moi c'est tout docteur qui mauvais. Ça veut dire ça, mais plutôt ça veut dire que système nan ka pousser ou faire plus passer ça qui nécessaire. Patient lui même ni capable entrer dans un cycle test médicament suivi sans fin et puis sortant des problèmes jusqu'à ce qu'il arrive faire voir dans pays sans chapeau. Mes amis 𝐁𝐋𝐀𝐙𝐘-𝐓𝐕 moi c'est en pile mon a comprendre dossier 𝐁𝐋𝐀𝐀𝐙𝐘 plus là. Mes amis 𝐁𝐋𝐀𝐙𝐘-𝐓𝐕 moi pour plus de détails en temps de docteur avec un pile attention même tout nous capable de faire recherche sur monsieur n'a c'est un gros docteur lié et faut que nous réveiller parce que 𝐁𝐋𝐀𝐓𝐕 moi parfois système n'a pas chercher vraiment il chercher faire l'argent sous dos. Si nous pas veiller qu'on nous capable tourner un client pour la vie pour système là c'est mettre quoi qui veut quoi en tout cas 𝐁𝐋𝐀𝐓𝐕 moi en temps de messia en temps de docteur nous même n'a pas partager pour nous protéger plus monde entendez.
Hi, I'm Dr. Scott Jensen, and I am not exaggerating when I tell you, if you're a patient, your doctor, your insurance company, your clinic, your hospital, we can all get paid more if we make you sicker. And I think you need to understand that. I've thought about doing this video for some time, but I'm a little nervous because I don't really want to get myself in any more hot water than I already am in regards to having governmental and public health agencies weaponized against me. But I'm going to say it again. If I make you sicker, I'll very likely get paid more. And I want to just unpack this a little bit. So I'm going to talk sort of quickly. I'm not giving you medical advice. Please see your own doctor for that. And my name is Dr. Scott Jensen. And I think this is important. So I've been getting a lot of patients lately. They've been coming in and they say, hey, Dr. Jensen, a nurse stopped out at my house the other day and had me do a bunch of different things. What's that all about? And I would hold up some papers and I'd say, oh, I've got it right here. So here's one patient. We'll just call him John Doe to de-identify him. So someone calls him and says, we'd like to come to your house and just do sort of a house call at your house. And so very convenient for you. They don't tell the patient, John Doe, and if you let me come in your house and get in your front door, then I'll get paid $100 or $150 or $200. And if I can complete this house call survey on you, then my employer will get paid more, potentially by the government or by the insurance company, depending upon who's who. So on this one here, this was John Doe, and he had this person come out, and there were all kinds of recommendations. But it's a 7-page report I got. One of the things that was, I guess, quite important was John Doe was asked, do you feel physically and emotionally safe where you are currently living? And he said, yes. Well, now this is a person who's in his 8th decade of life, so I would hope that you would feel safe and things like that, but I guess we're going to go out and query the world. The findings of his mini house call were that he's at a moderate risk to a high risk of falling, that his sensation in his feet is impaired, indicating a problem in neuropathy. He didn't realize that he was morbidly obese due to excess calories, but he is. He doesn't use a CPAP machine, but he does have obstructive sleep apnea, along with a multitude of other diagnoses that he didn't know he had. And he also now can be classified as having peripheral vascular disease because of one of the tests that was done when this nurse was there. He was advised that he's supposed to take a tetanus shot, a Prevnar 15, a Prevnar 20, colorectal cancer screening. He's also supposed to see me for advice regarding the use of various over-the-counter chemicals and bad habits. So I added it up. And if John Doe comes to me and does all the things that he's been told to do based on this, it'll probably come to be somewhere around $5,000 to $10,000 without breaking a sweat. Okay, so why is this being done? This patient's on Medicare. His insurance company will get paid more by Medicare if this patient is seen as more sick. There's all kinds of incentive plans being doled out by insurance companies and government programs to clinics and providers and healthcare systems. For instance, one of them that you may have heard of is if a clinic can hit a certain threshold level of patients taking a certain kind of vaccine, they get paid a chunk of money for each one of those patients that took the vaccine. So it's not uncommon to have like an influenza vaccine incentive program, and say you have 1,000 patients that could potentially qualify. Well, if you could hit, say, 60%, you might get this amount of money per patient. If you can hit 80%, they'll give you this much. Literally, doctors can get tens and tens of thousands of dollars on an annual basis for an incentive program as simple as that. Here's another one. If we can call you diabetic based on some parameters, even if we're not treating you with a medication or didn't really do anything for you, if we can call you diabetic and we do a test called an A1C. Now, if we do an A1C and we get a 6.8 reading, that allows us to call you diabetic, even if we don't do anything for you. And when a person has diabetes, generally a doctor or a clinic will get a good mark if they can keep that person's A1C less than 7.5, sometimes less than 8, sometimes less than 7. But if you can call someone a diabetic with an A1C of 6.8, you don't have to do anything. You just get to put them down as a diabetic, and they'll count as a good patient for you because you've gotten their A1C to less than 7 or 7.5. So all of a sudden, you've got this bizarre incentive to call as many of your patients as possible as diabetics. Here's another monitoring program. And this one, we'll call this patient Jane Doe. Now, Jane got paid somewhere around $100 to go to this physical place and have some tests done. So Jane's 90. Just about. Blood pressure comes back. She goes to this place. Her blood pressure is 135 over 60. 135 over 60. So she is advised, that's not healthy. Your blood pressure is too high. You need to have your blood pressure checked within 2 months by a physician. Don't you wait 4 months when your annual physical is going to take place. You got to see a doctor in the next 2 months because you're 135 over 60. Here's another fact that came out of this, out of clinic office assessment. Your body mass index was 28. That means you're not healthy because healthy stops at 25. You're overweight. Now, this is someone who's 90 years old and has a BMI of 28, which really isn't that bad. What else came out of this out of clinic assessment? In bright yellow writing, it says, your estimated glomerular filtration rate was calculated and your GFR is 52, and if it's less than 60, you have decreased kidney function and potential kidney disease chronically. You should discuss these results with your healthcare provider within a month. 1 month, you got to get in to see this. I mean, holy mackerel, your GFR is 52. Then, this 90-year-old person, they did a cholesterol. Your HDL cholesterol, that's the good cholesterol. I always tell patients, think of the HDL, think of H as heavenly. You want that. When you talk about your LDL, think of the L as lethal. So you got lethal cholesterol fraction and heavenly cholesterol fraction. This is the heavenly one. This is the one you want as much as possible. Above 35, absolutely what you want. Above 40, better yet. Above 50, you're doing great. This 90-year-old patient's HDL is not 35, it's 29. Here's what it says, bright yellow rating. HDL cholesterol values below 40 are suboptimal. So this 90-year-old person is told potentially kidney disease, your cholesterol's high, and because your blood pressure is 135/60, you got a problem and you better get in to see the doctor. Here's another one. This is one for me. It's Scott Jensen, and it tells me about my patients. And this packet of information, 4 or 5 pages, says, these 3 patients, and it lists them off, gives their birth dates, this is what's suboptimal about their care. Never mind the fact that all of them are 75 or older. Never mind that standards today indicate that we should seriously be questioning whether or not we put people on statin drugs over the age of 75 if they're not already on them. First one, this patient is 85, and it says, patients not adherent to cholesterol medication. So I'm supposed to, here's what it says, we encourage you to use the information to supplement your patient's records as well as to help evaluate whether a change in therapy with your patient is appropriate. Please communicate any changes directly to your patient and your patient's pharmacy. So I'm supposed to pull this patient's chart. Never mind the fact that I see this patient 3 or 4 times a year and have a good relationship with them. I'm supposed to call them up and say, hey, your insurance company has this program and they've kicked you out on this basis. They've kicked out this letter for you. And now I'm supposed to push you harder to get compliant with your cholesterol medicine. And then the next patient is, they're not doing their blood pressure pill. They're not taking it. How do you wonder, how does the insurance company know that? Well, they track whether or not you're getting your prescriptions filled at the pharmacy. And if you're not going in every 3 months and getting them, then they're saying, you're being a bad person and you're not following instructions. The bottom line is, there are all kinds of incentives to make sure your patient has an A1C under 7.5 or 7. Diagnose diabetics as early as you can while they still don't need any intervention. Then you get a bonus. You don't have to do anything and you get credit for it. Get your patient population a certain threshold of vaccinations and you get more money. Get your patients on statin drugs and you get more money. Follow up on these patients that didn't even know they had kidney problems. For us as physicians, we oftentimes will have an incentive package that will pay us more money per patient. During COVID-19, I don't think there's any question that there were incentives for hospitals. And oftentimes the hospital has clinics and physicians in their employment. So if a hospital does better because they have COVID-19 identified as one of the discharge summary diagnoses, and all of a sudden they're getting $75,000 per patient, that if they hit this threshold level at 161 during a time frame, I mean, that's a huge amount of money. Some hospital systems in Minnesota got $10-20 million. Some hospital systems didn't even know that there was a game to be played, so they never really performed well in terms of that lottery bonus situation. But the index of severity is oftentimes the phrase that we use. I remember when I was a medical director at nursing homes in days gone by, we would have a meeting quarterly and we would look at our patient population, and the director of nursing and the administrator of the nursing home would say, Dr. Jensen, we need to have this patient's index of severity raised because we would get paid more if we do that, and this patient takes quite a bit of time. And they say, could you make this diagnosis, and this diagnosis? And I said, well, I've never treated the patient for those things, but they are diagnoses that could be made. You might be wondering, what kind of diagnoses are we talking about? I could do a comprehensive profile, and we get electrolytes and kidney and liver function tests. And if the potassium isn't between 3.5 and 5.5, but it's 5.6, we can code that patient as having high potassium. And so then all of a sudden the patient looks sicker in the eyes of the insurance company or in the eyes of Medicare. The same thing goes on in the hospital. Hospitals hire coding experts to go around to the physicians and say, hey, we've been looking through the lab work and we found these 2 abnormal values and you did not mention them in your note. But if you would mention them in your daily note when you make rounds, then we can identify them on the discharge summary as legitimate diagnoses that took some time. And it might be a slightly low sodium. It might be a slightly low GFR, the glomerular filtration rate as it pertains to kidney function. It can be maybe an x-ray finding. Maybe there's a benign x-ray finding. Maybe there's a little calcified spot. Thousands and thousands and thousands of patients have little calcified spots on their x-ray. Call it out as an abnormal finding. And now you can put that down as a diagnosis code. You could put down pulmonary nodule, calcified, or something like that. But there are incentives built into the system all the way through it. Doctors getting more money from insurance companies. Insurance companies getting more money from Medicare. Nursing homes getting more money from insurance companies and Medicare. Doctors, clinics, hospitals, all getting more money from medical assistance programs if the medical assistance patients they take care of are sicker. If you call someone with a slightly elevated sugar as a pre-diabetic, that can work in your favor. If someone's blood pressure is slightly elevated and you call them out as having high blood pressure, that gets you more money. Bottom line is, there's all kinds of